So welcome everybody. Hello and good afternoon. My name is John Dodds and I'm the President and Chief Operating Officer of Kencor, which is an American Elevator Group company. I'm also the chair of the NAEC Member Services Committee, and I want to welcome everyone to our first town hall discussion of 2022. This series has become a set of dialogues with various leaders within the vertical transportation industry. These conversations over the past year have focused on topics that have been identified by NAEC members as important and significant ones for their business. The topics for this year's town hall series have started off with a topic that was the outcome of our polling from the fourth quarter town hall event at the end of 2021. As always, the Member Services Committee is eagerly looking for feedback on this series of events. So if you have any feedback in general, or if you have ideas about topics for future town hall events, please reach out to Trip at trip@naec.org. Today's topic is about recruiting, hiring, and retaining qualified labor. And this event will last for an hour and a half, ending at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. Today's panelists will discuss how to mitigate expensive employee turnover. Establishments in the elevator industry spend a lot of time and effort to recruit and hire the right people for the right job, a concept most famously coined by Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great. First, get the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus. Then get those people in the right seats on the bus before you figure out where to drive it. But sometimes we go through this arduous process only to have these people leave. Or perhaps you lose long-term employees who take great skills and knowledge with them that are difficult and costly to replace. In any scenario, turnover is expensive and frustrating. In a period of higher turnover, retention can also be a sign of employee sentiment and engagement, and be a competitive advantage. The ability to get and keep enough of the right people are the ultimate throttle for growth for any company. I would also contend that no company can grow steadily faster than its ability to consistently get enough of the right people to implement that growth. So it all comes down to people, and one could argue that nothing else comes close. So before I introduce the panelists, I would like to provide a few updates on important NAEC activities. First, NAEC is taking training on the road with a regional workshop in the Dallas, Texas area. It will be offered next week on both February 23rd and 24th, and this workshop will provide 8 hours of CE credits and 1 hour of safety credit. The same workshop will be offered on both days, with the same presentations and credit being offered in full on each day. For the full agenda for the seminar, please visit naec.org. We'll be holding our upcoming Spring Educational Conference in Sarasota, Florida. It will be held March 20th through 23rd at the Hyatt Regency Sarasota, where the weather averages from 58 to 77 degrees in March, which is a welcome relief for many of us who have been covered in snow, ice, and sub-zero temperatures, which feels like forever now. In addition to the hours of great educational content that is on the schedule, we have great local tours available, including an attractive trolley tour and a kayaking tour, and 2 separate days of golf tournaments. Please take a moment and register yourself and your staff for this great annual educational event. Immediately following the conference will be the Next Gen Retreat at the same hotel in Sarasota on March 24th and 25th. This 2-day retreat will feature a keynote presentation from Jeff Eaton of Lyft Business Advisors and a featured address from Janelle Aslam of Fenner Dunlop. If you or your staff are interested in the growth opportunities that NextGen offers for emerging leaders, then consider this retreat in Florida for that next step of professional growth. As a NextGen alumni, I can attest to the benefits of this group, and it's a group that I highly encourage for emerging leaders in the industry, especially for younger folks in your organizations that may be looking for mentorship and relationship building opportunities. Lastly, there's still space available for our NAEC supplier members to exhibit at our 2022 Convention and Expo, which will be held in Louisville, Kentucky this year. The event will be held September 17th through 21st at the Kentucky International Convention Center. You can get more information on the Spring Educational Conference, the Next Gen Retreat, and the convention and expo by visiting naec.org. Okay, so now it's time to move forward with our town hall event. We will be going through our panel individually in approximately 15-minute segments. And when all the panelists have had a chance to speak, we will ask some questions from the audience attendees. As you have questions, please write them in the Q&A window, and we will circle back to as many of them as time allows at the end. Please also note with your questions if it is a question that is specific for one panelist or if it's a general question for the entire panel. We will always try to be mindful of everyone's time and wrap up no later than 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. I would like to start by introducing the first member of our panel, Jay Arnson, the president of Genesis Elevator Company. Jay founded the company after a 24-year career with a major global elevator company. During that career, Jay held a variety of positions, including sales, marketing, product development, project management, field operations, and senior management as National VP of Operations. His values-based leadership sets the tone for Genesis employees and vendor partners, and his business acumen and vision ensures the Genesis brand sets the standard for commercial and residential elevator companies. He's involved in every facet of the company's operations and is a proven leader with a propensity for building highly motivated and productive teams. So Jay, thanks for joining us. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, John. Let me see if I can get this up here. So hopefully everybody can see that.
Sorry, Jay, we're not seeing it. Sorry, Jay.
Oh, you know, bear with me just a second. I have to share my screen. Can you see it now?
We're good.
Okay. Thanks, John. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on a topic that's pretty near and dear to my heart, and I'm sure a lot of companies out there, and that is how to hire and retain quality people in your organization. And for us, it's really technical resources that seem to be the biggest challenge for us. And so we adopted a process and a methodology of attracting people to our organization several years ago. It was actually one of our board of directors, Rich Allen, is a business coach out of Dallas, and he actually shared this process with us. And in fact, when he takes on a new customer, a new company, he requires them to adopt it, or he won't work with them. So obviously he believes in it, and we've been using it for probably about 8 years, and it's transformed a lot of things for us. And we've obviously modified it for our purposes over the years, but this is fundamentally the same process. So what we start with first is making sure we have a really clear culture and purpose to our organization, something that obviously is clear and something we believe in and something we live out. And so for us at Genesis, we've kind of envelope this into the Genesis way. I'm sure a lot of companies do similar kinds of things, but for us, it does make us a little unique in that we're in elevators, but our real purpose is orphan care. And as we get into our purpose, we define what we do and why we do it. So the ministry, it's a ministry called Saving Susan. And that's our core purpose. And that's something that we communicate both internally and externally through the company and to the outside. outside of the company so that people really understand what makes us unique. In the hiring process, what we want is to make sure that whoever we bring into the organization is a good fit. And what does that mean? A good fit for your company can be something that ties to your purpose, or it can be a culture that you've developed in your organization, whatever that might be. But when you bring somebody in, that's really kind of the first thing that we look at. And that's why this whole process is called Fit First. The other thing we look at as we go through this process is are they, the people we bring in, are they hungry, humble, and smart? We want them, because of our growth, we want them to be hungry, we want them to move up, but we also want them to be humble and be a servant leader, eventually be a servant leader, and being smart is certainly, I think what we all want too is smart people in our organization. Patrick Lencioni wrote a book called The Ideal Team Player that I would recommend as something to read, and that'll define that a little bit better. So only after we've determined that, in the next couple of slides, I'll talk a little bit about how we get to that. Once we've determined who is a good fit, then we look at skills and aptitude and attitude. And that's really where we start to look at, what are the skills that somebody has for the job, and what future need are they going to need for development of those skills. So we understand that. We also hire for the long term. And one of the things that I'm involved in every hire, the most important thing that we can do for our company is bring in the right people, kind of what John said, people in the, a good fit, in the right seat, and they're the right person. So we always look at it, is this somebody who we see that can grow with us and be with us for 10 years or more? The average tenure in the US is 4.6 years, and it's both costly and timely to replace people. And then, and then in that process, for us, we really try to show them what the benefits are to them personally, if they join our company as it relates to our culture. We really want them to be part of the hiring process, so they join us partially for that reason. We want them to, we certainly want them to commit to helping us succeed, but we want them to be part of our organization for the long term. One of the most difficult things that we have to find is highly skilled elevator people. And we've gone down the path of hiring for skill, and we all know that elevator folks are highly skilled. They've got a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of companies that are looking for highly skilled people. But what we found is, if we can grow our own, meaning we can bring them in and then develop them over time, and again, that they're a good fit for the organization, our long-term success is really much better. Now, that doesn't mean we don't hire people that are highly skilled, but we really look and dive into the fact, are they a good fit for us? Doesn't mean that they're a good fit for everybody, but are they a good fit for us? And then once they're in our organization, we focus in on pay for performance, and we don't set what their scale could be. We just say, listen, if you earn it, we're going to pay it, and we've got a process of how we do that and the levels that we go through to do that. But we don't, if somebody is absolutely critical to the organization and is generating a great deal of value, then we believe, we got to pay for that. We also have to make sure we're training them, rewarding them, and we want to be inclusive. And I don't just mean inclusive in terms of today's terms, which is important, but inclusive in terms of our family company. and how do we engage people who are out on job sites, all the time? How do we engage them in the company? And so what does that look like for your company? What do you do to bring these folks in and make them feel like they're something bigger than just an elevator company? What does that really look like? And then for us, one of the jobs of management is to help people flourish in their role, make this something that they're not only proud of, but they're getting something out of individually. Either that's through their family and what their family's involved in, or there's some other reason than just collecting a paycheck. So we do, quarterly reviews with every one of them. We want to give positive constructive feedback on how they're doing, on what they need to do. We go through a performance development plan with all our mechanics and everybody in management, sales, and everything else to really make sure that they understand what it's going to take for them to move into whatever they believe their goals are, or positions that they want to be in. And those are conversations we have on a quarterly basis. The reality is, in these discussions and in this feedback, there are some people that are going to take advantage of your honesty, your trust, and your effort. And for us, it's how fast we can remove them. But we really want to remain, tied into them and making sure that we put them first. Once they are hired, we want to engage them on an individual level. Do you know their story? Do you take time to learn about their family and know what's really important to them? And again, vulnerability is important. You don't need to share all your sob stories, but vulnerability is why you're in this business. Why did you do this? What was the motivating thing that drove you to step in and do something that is unique, and do something for a purpose that is really important to you. One of the things that I do is I have every Wednesday morning, I have breakfast with one of our guys out in the field. And it's a way for me to connect with them. It's a place where I get to learn from them of what they see that we could do better, get to know them a little bit better, and just make sure they understand, as a company, this is really what we're driving. This is really important, and give them an opportunity to ask questions about that. The other thing that we've done in the past is we've been too quick to hire, and we haven't done our due diligence up front. So now our methodology is we're slow to hire. They have to be a good fit. If for whatever reason they're the wrong person in the wrong seat, or the wrong person in the right seat, doesn't matter. If they're the wrong person, we take them out of the organization as quickly as we can. So the next two slides, I'm not going to go through in detail, but we have a four-step hiring system. It's a little wacky. It's a group interview thing. You may think, geez, that doesn't work, but it really does for us. And the first step is generating leads for the position, making sure we get as many people as we can interested in the role. And the thing to keep in mind is we're in a marketplace right now where you have to recruit. And that includes the owner of the company, president, whoever. You have to recruit people to come in, because there's so many opportunities out there, especially for skilled trades. So what I do is, once we go through this first step of generating leads for the position, I call them our top candidates each individually and say, hey, we'd really love for you to come in and talk to us. Really think this is a great fit for you, and it'll be worth your time and energy. So what we do is once we post this out and we get it out to everybody, and all the boards, we have them call into a phone box and we ask them 2 questions. They answer those questions and then an email goes to the hiring manager. They vet those out and then we determine, okay, who are the people that we want to continue to the next step in. And then those people we take through just a simple profile tool. It could be, you probably heard of Culture Index or DISC or Enneagram, just to give us an idea of what, what they're all about, what's important to them and that kind of thing. Then we bring them in for an on-site screening of those leads. So we do a group interview and we might have, we try to have about 8 people, 8 candidates we've already pre-screened through the phones and bring them in for this group interview. And the step 3 kind of goes through what that process is, but it really does work. And the beauty of it is you have the people there on your side that have a vested interest in this role. And what you're really looking for at this point in time is do you think they're going to work well with your company and your people and the way things are done in your organization? And so how they answer and the way they conduct themselves. There's a funny story. A couple of weeks ago, we did this. We brought this guy in. He made it through the phone screen. Great resume. His index, his profile was good. He comes in, and one of the answers to the questions were, what are you passionate about? And he said, counting cards. I'm learning to count cards. Well, we're a ministry, I mean, and it's obvious. Our purpose is orphan care. So it was kind of like, okay, that guy wouldn't fit, and not realizing that he answered that question knowing who we are, he doesn't really get it. So obviously he didn't go any further, but it's really important during this time is to get a sense of who the person is, and do you feel that they're going to move into your organization and work well with your existing team. And then only after that do you pick the top 2, 3, and you do personal interviews. And the beauty of this process is it cuts your hiring time down significantly, because when you do the group interview, all the people who have vested interest in this role are there, and they're part of the selection process of who you bring back. And because of that, you have a consensus on who the best candidates would be. And I can tell you for us anyway, and I think I'm getting pretty close to my time here, but for us, every time we decide to go outside this process, the likelihood that that person's going to stay for the long haul, either because they want to or we want them to, diminishes significantly. We've hired, especially technical resources, we've hired because of skill, not really all that concerned about whether they're a good fit, and they come in and they last for a short period of time, and then somebody else offers them $1 more or 50 cents more an hour, and they're gone. And I think it's because they're not really buying into who we are and why we do it. So I've given Trip this first fit hiring process, more detail on it from Rich Allen. Also, this is kind of our process that we follow. So hopefully that's helpful to people.
Great, thanks, Jay. And that's going to be naturally available to everyone on NAEC's website when this is posted. Just a follow-up question or 2. One is on clarity around the group interview. So group interview is group on your side, and then is it group to the individual, or is it group to group when you do your group interviews?
We bring everybody. So we might have 8 candidates with 2 or 3 of our people. So the way the questions work, the questions are relatively generic, and everybody gets a chance to go first and everybody gets a chance to go last. So you rotate it around, and you're really looking for how comfortable they are in this setting, and the more comfortable they get, their personality and characteristics come out. So you can better tell whether or not they really are a good fit. Plus, you know, their answers usually can give you an indication of their intellect. You know, are they deep thinkers? Are they, you know, are they not? Or you know, you're really kind of watching how they interact with the others, that kind of stuff, to determine, okay, they're somebody who we want to bring back for the last step.
And you know, you spent a lot of time talking about culture, and I imagine some of what you're just discussing there obviously ties into whether that's going to be a cultural fit. But do you have a process, or how do you convey culture, you know, during that group interview with your potential candidates?
Good question. So we actually developed a video, and of course I'm on it as a president, but we talk all about culture, and we have several of our people, you know, somebody from the field, somebody from manufacturing, somebody from sales. My wife gets on it to talk about our ministry, and we're really sharing about our culture and our purpose in that phase. And it lasts, you know, it lasts 10 minutes, and then we give them an opportunity to ask questions about it if they have any.
And one additional question for you, and then we'll move on to our next panelist. You know, you had mentioned, you know, obviously the elevator technician's highly skilled job, right? But I've kind of developed a mantra. I shouldn't even say I developed it. I heard it somewhere and I fell in love with it. You know, I stole it. You know, hire for DNA, not MBA, right? So it's kind of like tying into that personality piece that you were speaking so much about. So how do you determine if a candidate has the right skill set for a role?
Well, obviously their work experience is, and we do, you know, in the third interview, we get into that more, but you know, what we really try to do is to recruit from places where we can bring them in. Like I said earlier, John, we want to grow our own. So we have a relationship with two of the local high schools here in Atlanta, their technology department, and we recruit from there, and we, you know, we volunteer our time and we participate in their trade programs. One is kind of a community service, but also it gives us a shot at who we think would be a good fit for what we do. You know, if they've been an elevator technician or they've been out in some kind of skilled trades out there, you know, we'll do some further discussions, and you know, one of the things that our guys do, you know, we take them over to an elevator and we say, read a tape measure. You know, I mean, it's sometimes you just got to get down to that level, but really, once we get through the group interview process, we pretty much know whether or not they have the aptitude to do this job or not.
All right, well, excellent. I appreciate your time, Jay. And, you know, we'll probably try to circle back to you towards the end if we have questions coming in from the audience. I see a few have come in already. So thanks again for sharing that information. Now I would like to move on to our next presenter, Michelle Williams of Vantage Elevation, where she serves as the Vice President of People and Culture. In this role, she has responsibility for the company's human resources strategy. Michelle came to Vantage with over 20 years of human resources experience, most of which were in leadership positions, such as her previous role as Vice President and Head of Human Resources for Markle Paper, where she was responsible for leading the HR strategy and function for the company. In addition to Markle Paper, Michelle's previous experience included leading the HR transformational strategy at Fresh Direct and Duane Reade. Thank you for joining us, Michelle, and I will turn it over to you.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I'm super excited to be here to discuss this topic that I know has been a difficult one for us over the course of the last couple of years, but I'm hoping I can share some things and also learn some things from the other panelists so that we can continue to forge forward in this recruiting crisis that we're all enduring. So if you bear with me, I'm going to share my screen so we can have a bit of a dialogue. So advantage, when we talk about people and culture, and certainly this topic that's on hand, the recruiting, hiring, and retention of qualified talent, we're really looking at it from a three-prong approach. We're wanting to leverage the power of our people, our own people, our talent, certainly leveraging the power of our relationships within the educational institutions, places like colleges, universities, technical schools, and certainly vocational schools, and continuing to create a culture that our employees want to be a part of and are certainly proud to be a part of. And so those are the three areas that we're going to focus on with regards to the conversation where we're focusing on Vantage. So in that first area of focus, leveraging the power of our people. So in the discussion, recruiting, hiring, and retention, we're going to kind of reverse it a little bit. And so like Jay is really taking a look internally on our own people when we talk about advancement, opportunity, and what have you. And so the first area of focus is, again, we wanted to focus on making sure transparency and consistency on how we were communicating our opportunities to our internal workforce before we went to the outside. So really encouraging internal movement within our organization. And so allowing every employee the same access and opportunity. So once a month, all of our employees get a full list of all of the opportunities available within our company, and they are welcome to apply to any position that they are interested in. The second area here is, I know a little cliche, and we've all heard the term before, great people know great people. And as cliche as that may be, it really is true. And also what we find when our employees recommend people to our organization, they tend to stay longer. There's more longevity with those referred and recommended employees. And so we implemented a company-wide referral program to encourage our employees to recommend their friends, their families, and their former colleagues to our organization in exchange for a referral bonus. So there's an incentive behind this program. We're focusing on continuous development. So Jay shared an area of focus in his organization with regards to those technicians. Similar in our organization, our employees, our junior engineers, and our highly technical employees are very competitive, right? The market is extremely competitive for them. They're in high demand. And so we want to continue to grow those employees and make sure that we're focusing on those employees with those specialized skill sets so that we're retaining them in their seat. So creating career paths is extremely important within those employees with those specialized skill sets. So continuing to develop their skills while they're developing on-the-job experience is critical for us. Allowing them the opportunity to continue to grow within our organization, within the function or outside of the function if they want to go into different areas. But with that being said, we also have to be honest with ourselves with how we're paying those very skilled, highly competitive roles. So staying abreast of the market is critical for us. So continuously doing market analysis on how those positions are paying in the market and understanding that and making sure that we're being just as competitive internally as other companies are being externally. So being abreast of that and communicating that and making sure that we're fixing those along the way is very, very important. Ongoing leadership development. So probably like most companies, a lot of our leadership team are ingrown. They grow within our organization. And so it's important for us to always sharpen those skills. We want our leaders to feel confident, continue to feel confident in leading their people. So we want to always invest in those leadership teams. So our middle management and our frontline managers are always sharpening those skills so that they can lead with confidence and certainly drive the results that they want to see within our company. And certainly we want to encourage them to drive. So giving them skills that throughout the year they are able to sharpen and again, continue to strengthen those skills. And then when everything is said and done, when we're talking about really continuing to invest in our people, we have a tuition reimbursement program. a robust tuition reimbursement program. So if anyone in the organization wants to further their education, they want to, again, sharpen those skills within their functional area of expertise, or simply just get professional development, they can certainly take advantage of our tuition reimbursement program that's available to them. So that's the first prong of how we're looking internally at our people and always leveraging the power of our people as we continue to fight this recruiting crisis that we have. That second prong approach is leveraging the power of our external relationships. So we all know the pandemic really affected how students learn. They were remote learning for quite some time. And now things are starting to get back to normal. And so how do we reestablish those relationships, re-strengthen those relationships as students get back into campus and back into your typical learning environment? How do we, again, reestablish that presence in those educational institutions? It's important for us to try to recruit early in those young professionals' educational career, so that we can offer them an opportunity with our company as they continue to acquire their degrees in the studies that they're going after. It's a win-win situation. We get in front of them early enough, they get hands-on training and experience, and we also get to welcome these young professionals into our organization and hopefully, again, create those career paths for them. The other thing that we're doing outside of just the educational institutions that we want to be a part of is the local communities. We partner pretty heavily in the local communities where we operate. And so making sure that those same organizations that we have formed really great relationships with, that they also know what we're recruiting for and the positions that we have open, so that, again, we are communicating openly with regards to the opportunities available at Vantage. The third part of that prong approach here at Vantage is our culture. Jay talked a lot about culture, and I really couldn't agree more. I think in today's market, people want to feel connected, right? And not just by money anymore. Yes, money is important and highly competitive, but people want to feel connected to their jobs, their careers, the companies that they are a part of. And so really ensuring that we're doing an internal look on how are we creating the experience for our employees upon hire and setting them up for success to really hit the floor running, and again, give them the confidence that they've made the right decision in being a part of our organization, and setting them up for success as quickly as possible with that onboarding and orientation experience. We're celebrating diversity, again, making sure that our associates are feeling inclusive, that we're treating them equitably, and that will always be a focus of ours. And so again, looking at the culture that we're providing them, so that people, again, feel connected to our organization, and therefore they feel like this is where they want to be. This is where they see their careers long-term, and certainly where they want to be a part of. And how we continue to evolve and think outside of the box is going to be critical. Strengthening company-wide communication. I think many organizations can relate that communicating can sometimes be difficult, right? Consistent communication can sometimes be difficult. So for us is staying very present and conscientious of that this is something that we have to continuously look to do for our employees, making sure that they are aware of what's happening, not only within their departments, but within the organization, and certainly what's happening within our industry that's affecting us one way or the other. Again, giving them that sense of connection because we are communicating with them on a more ongoing basis and on a continuous basis. So not a lot of rocket science here. I think what the pandemic has done and this market has done, although difficult, I think it's challenged leadership and HR professionals to think outside of the box and continue to differentiate ourselves as what kind of company do we want to be and what kind of environment do we want to provide for our people. And so always being really honest and transparent with what that looks like and evolving with the times is super critical for us, because we don't have the answers for everything. But I think when our employees know that we don't have the answers for everything, and they sometimes can come up with those answers with us, again, it gives us great alignment and great engagement overall. And so, these were the few slides that I wanted to share with regards to kind of what we're doing here at Vantage. And although not rocket science, is really going back to basics, right? What's important for us, which ultimately what's important for our people as we continue to move in this environment.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Appreciate your time, and maybe just a few follow-up questions or comments. First one is, I love that last point you just had, which is on communication. It amazes me, how often that comes up as problematic, not only in my own organization, but pretty much every business leader that I've spoken with. Communication is always at the top of the list, and you really think you're doing that well, and it just proves sometimes how challenging that can be. One question, go back to I think it was your second slide, where you were kind of highlighting, the importance of that local partnership. And, I know the idea of local partnerships can be very meaningful, not only for the company, but, potentially also for that employee or that future employee. So what type of organizations do you partner with, and, where do you see, I guess, greater success?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually, John. I would say, you know what, there's no set, call it criteria, right? I think, I'll give you a perfect example. In New York, we sponsor a local domestic violence shelter, and it's just a company, an organization that we have partnered with over the years. And recently, we started to share with them our open jobs. And we actually started to hire some really great people from that shelter to come in and join the workforce again. And it did twofold, right? It was a mutually beneficial relationship for the domestic violence shelter, but for us also. We added more women in our operations than we had probably ever before, just with that single relationship that we leveraged. We already had the relationship, and it dawned on us to share the openings, right? Because someone may just be interested in getting back in the workforce and getting their lives going again after this traumatic event that they had in their lives. And, again, it's the sentiment of giving back, but also getting back, because we're getting back so much more. And that's just one example. We've partnered with local churches, and that has gained success as well. So I will tell you, John, that there's no perfect model of what kind of companies you should partner with. I think you would be surprised by, when you start to think outside of the box, and some of those local organizations that are part of your community, again, what kind of mutually beneficial can come from those relationships. So I really encourage everyone to kind of tap into those environments and those local communities and see what's out there.
Great, that's really a great story. The first story you're telling there about the local, shelter. That's fantastic. One last follow-up question, and only because both you and Jay kind of have touched on this, and it's really just, and this is a big topic, but we could spend a lot of time on it. But the idea around culture and so just in your viewpoint, why do you and your organization spend as much time on culture as you do?
I think it's a little bit of what I alluded to in our conversation, John, around people just want to have a bigger connection. I think there's so many options for folks now in this environment that it has to be deeper for them than just compensation. Is there flexibility for my family? Is the company's vision and mission tie closely with my own personal, morals and how I want to operate as a human? And I think when you start to look and tap into some of those things, you have no choice but to see how are we performing as an organization as it relates to the environment that we're providing our people. And so again, making sure that our mission, our vision, our values are, again, all over the organization, that they're being communicated, that people understand what those vision, mission, and values are, and that they truly feel connected because we're doing things along the way to show them how we're living up to those values and those missions. It's not a moment in time. It's not a poster. It's something that we have to live and breathe every single day so that, again, our people are truly connected to those values and directionally where we're going so that they can be engaged and feel like they're performing in an organization that they truly want to be a part of. So it's allowing them to connect on a deeper level. And I think that's just where we are as an environment and as people. We don't just want to come into work anymore. We want to feel like we're coming into work and we're truly making a difference. And so what does that look like? What kind of opportunities are we providing for our people to make those contributions to our organization because they want to do that? And so again, just ensuring that it's very present in our mind and that we're being conscientious about how that culture is defined by our people and for our people.
Great, thank you for that. And certainly thank you for your time and your expertise. And I'm going to move on to our next presenter on the panel. Next on the panel is Cheryl Ellis, a senior HR consultant for the Hopkins Group. She has more than 20 years of experience in human resources. Cheryl has provided HR services in a variety of industries, including nonprofits, communications, IT, hospitality, and manufacturing. She has worked with businesses ranging in size from startups to medium-sized companies. She has her SHRM and PHR certifications. Cheryl is certified as an ADA coordinator and leave management specialist. She also has a certificate in diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. Cheryl is the author of Making It Work, Managing Your Health Condition Through ADA Workplace Accommodations, and a recognized expert in the Title I of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Cheryl, thank you for being here, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Can everybody hear me? Okay,
yep, we
great.
got you. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, I think the information that Jay and Michelle were giving is such wonderful insight. And what I hope to do is complement the insight with something a little bit different, but we'll kind of add to what they are talking about. So I'm going to share my screen here. Make sure I do this right. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen okay?
We got it, thanks.
Okay, great. Okay, well, he told you I'm with the Hopkins Group. One of the things I'm going to talk about is recruiting, interviewing, hiring, and retaining through a DE&I initiative. This is new for a lot of companies. It's a great way to diversify your company. I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means, but you're seeing a lot of companies do this. A little bit about it. Diversity is the presence of differences within the workplace. So that means differences in race, ethnicity, gender, LGBTQ, age, socioeconomic class, and also differently abled. So that's like people with disabilities. And with DEI is equity. People feel like the processes and programs are impartial and fair and equal with the best possible outcomes. And it also is inclusive. As Michelle was just talking about, people want to feel a sense of belonging and they want to feel supported by the organization. So what DEI does, this initiative, provides a lot of this kind of feeling. Now, DEI, though, programs and initiatives really have to be planned and implemented and monitored. You see sometimes where companies have a DEI initiative and it's not really implemented appropriately. You really have to take the time, have someone come in or someone within your organization to really have this program working correctly and really making a difference. One of the big things I talk about, I'm always selling when I'm talking. I do a lot of Title I ADA about accommodation processes and how to set it up. It has to be business case, right? You have to have a business case for doing this. It's not just about doing it because of the right thing. it's got to be bottom line profitable, right? So what I did here to sell it to you is some studies that I have found that are just wonderful studies that talk about how inclusion actually equals more revenue. Same thing with the American Psychological Association. You know, they're showing diversity inclusion done the right way can also increase sales and profits. So I put the links here so that you guys can actually look at this. And when you're talking to shareholders within your company, you do want to sell them. Why do they need to do this? How is it in the best interest of your company to have this type of initiative and to put the time and money into doing it? One of the ones I use in when I do the accommodation process training that I do is Accenture. This shows how employing individuals, qualified individuals with disabilities, and retaining those individuals by providing the accommodations they need to do their job, actually they make twice as much income. I mean, this is a fantastic research that's been done also about, you know, when you take the time, money, and investment in doing it the right way, you can actually make a lot of money doing this. So again, it's not just about the right thing. This is a good business sense to do this, but again, you have to do it right. So obviously I can't touch on everything, you know, in this short time about D&I, but I just want to kind of give you an overview. One of the things I do want to point out too that I didn't put on this is by 2030, there are going to be 1 out of 5 workers in the labor force is going to be Hispanic. So what does that mean to you? So you have to pay attention to that. And right now they're 1/4 of the labor force. So those are some of the other things that you may want to take a look at of why you may want to put together a DEI initiative. So what we're going to talk about specifically is recruiting through this DEI initiative lens. It's a lot of information, so I wanted just to stick to the recruiting part since that's the beginning. And I have 10 steps for you that I'm going to talk about. You've heard a little bit from Michelle and Jay about, you know, recruiting individuals outside the norm, right, within your community. They talked about the local partnerships with domestic violence shelter, and Jay talked about the Serving Susan program. So what other places in your community is is your company made up of the same types of individuals as your community? Communities want to see that companies are reflecting what their community looks like. So that may be a different way of looking at it. You know, you want to actively search for veterans, people with disabilities, those who identify as LGBTQ, people of color, the mature workforce. Look at your departments. What are they made of? What are we missing there? And it's going to be different for different cities, different states that you are in. I know some companies, they have 3 or 4 different locations. So that makeup and what needs to be for that community is going to look differently. And also state in your ads that your company welcomes applications from a wide range of job candidates. And when you talk about explicitly saying that your business values inclusivity and diversity, be careful and make sure you're walking the talk when you say that. One of the important ones is creating an inclusive job description. A lot of people talk about this, right? Being inclusive, being diverse, but what does that mean? So with job descriptions, you want to focus on what needs to be accomplished, not just on the qualifications. So step back and say, what does the person need in this role to get it done? You also want to avoid using language, it's very common for companies to do this, is use words like work hard, play hard, ninja. We want a rock star. We think because of the type of company we are, it's better to have recent college graduates or entry level. When you do this, you really repel individuals who may actually apply for the job that would be qualified, not do that, such as women, mature workforce, or people with disabilities. So really words matter. We have to be really careful of the words we use. And of course, many times when you use these words, your intention is not to, to repel other individuals, but that's the interpretation. That's what we have to learn, is what those interpretations of those words are. So what we have found that words like dedicated, determined, creates meaningful change. Those are the words that attract everybody. So just think about the words of what you're using. Also, educational requirements. through the years, we're starting to pay attention that sometimes we're requiring educational requirements that are really not needed for the job, and it really exceeds what this job really needs. And what we need to look more at is their job experience. Sometimes they have the job experience we need, but we lose them because we're saying that they need more educational requirements because we think we're going to get a better employee with that. So just take a look at that. Also using gender neutral descriptions. And, you know, some of the stuff I'm telling you is fairly new, but it is working better to attract individuals. Instead of using he or she when explaining a job description or recruiting individuals, you want to use the words you or they or them. They or them are for people who are binary that do not, you know, see themselves as female or male. But a good one to use is like, you will design, code, and test. When you're using those type of words, people feel like you're talking to them. They feel like, you know, okay, this is something I may can do, or they will be accountable for. Those are just some examples of how you can use this information. You also want to widen your search. I just talked about this a little bit, but I'm going to go a little bit more specific here, to include diverse groups and pools of talent. So again, like Jay and Michelle have been talking about, is look where you're placing your ads. Where are you recruiting? Look at what groups are underrepresented in your organization. And again, it's going to look different for different locations. You know, what you have in New York versus Texas is going to look different of what's underrepresented and what needs to be in that community. And, you know, they've talked about too, look at online forums, social media, trade groups, you know, the vocational schools they both talked about, but also AARP. That's a great place. They have a wonderful place to place ads. And also they talked about the schools. So look at underrepresented, ask your employees, you know, ask the community, where is it that you're not looking? One of the things I was really surprised about, the more I've been learning about NAEC and this and the elevator business, it's like, wow, I was so intrigued with what it is you all do. I mean, I think there needs to be a lot of education about really what some of those jobs entail and some of the creativity and intelligence and things that you guys do. So coming from my perspective, that would be one thing I would love is education on what those jobs really entail. Also government resources, you know, they're always posting jobs, you know, vets programs. They have what's called a one-stop. Most you know, communities or what cities have this. Also vocational rehabilitation. They usually have one in each city. And what's so neat about that is, you know, people end up either they get sick, they have an injury, or something happens where they need to change jobs and they need to be retrained. They will sometimes fund them to be retrained. And they're great employees. They just need help getting to transition to something different. And that's a really great place to educate them about what you guys do. 4, inclusively design the application process. This one I think is a really important one. You know, a lot of these recruitment systems can be very laborious, very difficult to go through. Sometimes they're not user friendly. And, you know, people get intimidated from it. So, you know, look at your recruitment system. I know a lot of companies are doing this and reevaluating the recruitment system because sometimes these technologies screen out candidates that could be very valuable to your organization. And, you know, they can create barrier for individuals that would be qualified. So I always just say, just, you know, reevaluate that, you know, have people within the community test it out, have people, your employees test it out. What is it that they're experiencing that makes it hard? But I'm seeing a lot of companies reevaluate this because this has been, it's really sometimes, you know, cutting off individuals who would be a really great fit for your company. The last one on this is introduce blind auditions into your hiring process. This may be new for some of you guys, but you know, we all have biases. We have unconscious biases. Everybody does. It's being able to recognize them and not apply them, especially in hiring and interview decisions. So what I always recommend is when you're giving resumes to managers to look at, remove the names. or remove the school dates or where they live. Anything that shows what kind of protected class they are, because this reduces the chance of bias, right? Related to gender, race, national origin, or even disabilities. So anything you can do so that the hiring manager, to help the hiring manager be able to focus on what is needed. We'll go next. And we want to evaluate the screening and selection procedures. And this is something I think needs to be done on a, at least a yearly basis, where you look at these employment tests that they need to be job related, consistent with business necessity. We all know that, but sometimes they disproportionately exclude applicants in a protected class. So we have to really evaluate that. And if it does, determine if there's another test that can get you the equally effective that will, predict performance. And anytime before you implement a pre-employment test, make sure that they're valid, right? Because it's really important that you aren't affecting a protected class or screening out people that were actually pretty qualified. And train your decision makers how to look at these tests. It's not black and white just because the tests give you a certain result. So train your managers, make sure that you have a team that are looking at this. And diversify the selection committee. So what I mean by that is I encourage you guys, if you can, to have a panel. And I think Jay was talking about he does some sort of panel also. So when you do diversify, if you're talking about you are diverse and inclusive, then a diversified panel could really help you out to get different points of view. And this is going to also help affect, bias and hiring decisions, right? And also it's really important to train hiring managers and anybody on these panels about explicit and implicit biases. Those are something a lot of companies are training on, because we all have them. We all can say we don't, but we're human. So it is making sure that we understand them and we learn from ourselves of what our unconscious biases are and how not to act on those, right? And then providing reasonable accommodations. So this is about reasonable accommodations when there's any change in the application process or hiring process, or when the person actually gets on the job and they need adjustments. They still have to be qualified for the job and be able to perform the main functions of the job, but they may need an accommodation, or they may need, equal employment opportunities, being able to access the building or go to, events. So the Title I of the ADA really applies to reasonable accommodations, but then you have sincerely religious beliefs and practices that sometimes you have to accommodate also. So really, I always encourage this, when you are posting those ads and stuff, that, encourage people to be able to request accommodations when needed, because sometimes they need them in order to even interview. So determine whether they need that, whether they're interviewing online or in person. Make sure I'm on track here. And when you're preparing for an inclusive interview with your hiring managers and your panel, make sure that they know their role in the panel, what their role is when they're interviewing, and really find the best means for candidates to demonstrate their capabilities. The questions you'll be asking: how will you score these applicants? What are supplementary questions, right? If there's something and you find that this person starts having what you need, are there supplementary questions that you can ask? You just want to keep a consistency on those questions, so you're gathering similar information from them. Now you go into the inclusive interviews. So what are those inclusive interviews? You want to set the right tone. You don't want to ask the right questions. And when you're asking the questions, what is focus on the candidate's motivation at the specific requirements of the job. And most importantly, I can't say it more, is, listen actively, take notes, and clarify, because it's easy for us to make assumptions, right? We do these interviews all the time and we hear. So make sure you understand what they're telling you. And then with the online interviews, make sure that, you know, you're testing the technology up front and that they know what to expect and if they need an accommodation to do this. Online interviews can be really different for a lot of people. So just make sure that they are, you know, understanding what that process is. A lot of times when I'm doing interviews, I will actually have a closed captioning and ask if they want me to put the closed captioning on, because sometimes those questions get really long and they're nervous. You can even, you know, provide the questions right before the interview. So there's things that you can do to make it more easy, you know, easy for the applicant. And I apologize, I got sidetracked when I noticed my my numbers are all off. So it should be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm not sure how that happened, but it happened. So anyway, so I hope this gives you a little bit different take. But I think it's important to look at the DE&I initiative. I mean, people really want to work for these type of companies, and they're actually actively looking. If I'm very involved with LinkedIn and seeing, you know, what goes on and with all of our clients that we work with. And, you know, this is what people are looking for. They want to feel, as Jay and Michelle said, you know, they want to feel like they're part. This is not just a job for them. They want to feel part of this and supported by the organization. They want to have benefits that give them that work-life balance, and that they're honored for the uniqueness that they come with, right? And their creativity. So I hope this gives you a different way of, you know, looking at recruiting.
Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate that. And I actually want to start with kind of where you just ended, which is, you know, the DEI program. I think probably something that's new to most of our members, certainly new to me. Mm-hmm. And if I heard you right at the beginning of your presentation, it sounded like there was kind of some structure around that, or maybe some rules or a process that you need to maybe follow. So how would an organization, you know, kind of begin to develop a DEI program and, you know, that kind of recruiting initiative that you were mentioning?
Well, I think you need to be able to identify your key matrix. Okay, what is your company made of? Where are you challenged in not having? You want to be able to measure those matrix also. So, you know, assess what you implement and then reevaluate. Get your managers involved, get your employees involved. You know, and if you're going to do anything to find out what the employees are, make sure you follow up on that. But get people within the company to get involved in this, because a colleague of mine, their company did a DEI and has a rep that's what he does. And the feedback from employees was not very good because of the rollout was not, it wasn't really planned, other than, oh, we have a DEI initiative and this is the individual that can help with that. It's really got to be planned out, and what does that look like for your organization? And it's going to look different for different organizations. So, one of the biggest things I have to say about this is really reflecting on what your community looks like and what your organization looks like. So you really have to start putting together some matrix. I advise that people actually bring somebody in, unless the other option is have someone within your organization really train and understand how to build those matrix and how to assess them and where they need to be implemented. And again, it's going to be different for one location versus another. And you don't want this blanket, just, you know, general, this is how it's going to do, and now we are DEI, you know. But it is a huge movement right now. And it's because of what I was talking about the money. There is an ROI. So there's a business case for doing this, and people are making more money. They're getting better ideas and creativity, and just the synergy is amazing in these companies. And just even with people with disabilities, I mean, they're making, you know, twice as much as their peers. Now you do have, just like what we're talking about, the DI, the accommodation process, you have to have a solid accommodation process implemented and know, have it set up. So this isn't something you just go out and, you do need to plan for it. You need to get a group together that actually a team to be able to start, assessing this and how you could do this and how your company looks.
Okay. And lastly, because Michelle touched on this a little bit as well, you spent some time talking about, creating a diverse pool of candidates and applicants. How would you recommend that our membership kind of proactively reach out to those individuals?
Well, I would first look at who you are currently. And then again, we look at the community. What is in the community that you haven't tapped into? I was talking a little bit about vocational rehab. That is a great place that can actually provide funding also. Michelle talked about even churches, but in domestic violence, there's companies that, if I'm in the Seattle area, there's a lot of LGBTQ organizations. Reach out to those organizations. So really have to look at what is your underrepresented within your company in that location. And I think that can really help. And sometimes that is asking employees or reaching out to these different organizations to find out where they need to. Like me, when I started working with NAEC, I was like, I had no idea what the whole elevator organization, it excited me. I'm like, oh my gosh, because I know there's people who, young individuals who are really struggling with what they want to do. And I could think of 2 or 3 people that would just love to be interested in something. But I think this industry is an educational industry. Education could really go really far with this industry, because what my interpretation of it was just out of what I knew, right? You push a button, you go in the door. So you have somebody, I had no idea there's engineers and stuff. So is there a place for education within this industry that could provide some insight and provide some information to people that may know that you may never have gotten before, that can use all kinds of different skills? You have the engineering and the plumbing and, the electrical, and being able to use all of that. And there's some people that don't want to just be engineers. They want to be able to have their hands in everything. And I understand that they go a lot to auto, but then there's individuals that don't want to do automotive because they don't make enough money and they don't know that there's another option, right? So it's really knowing what you don't know and finding out from others and talking with others to find out what that is. That was a long-winded answer. Sorry.
No, that was great. And I think our industry spends a lot of time talking about just that topic, right? That right. We're very kind of sheltered. Not a lot of people think about elevators when they think about the trades. So thank you for that information. And we're now going to kind of roll over to the Q&A, session of the town hall. We'll see what questions have come in and, see what else we can expand on in a little bit of the time that we have left here. I do see that a few questions have come in and have been answered already. I will circle back to them if we have time, but we have a couple of open questions for the panel. First one is directed to Michelle, and it's, how can you create a company culture that fits a multicultural, inclusive philosophy?
That's a really great question. And I'll be honest to say, we started a DE&I initiative last year. And we were slow to start it because, like Cheryl said, we did not want to be cookie cutter. We didn't want to kind of this peanut butter spread kind of approach. And in being slow to start the process, the way we did it was, again, internal look. Our committee is made up of our own employees, which is represented across all of the divisions within Vantage. And there's a good representation of many different cultures within that committee. And so those voices are really well represented within our committee. And they are really driving the direction of where this initiative is going. I, of course, have a ton of ideas of where we can continue to add value for DE&I, but it's not my program. It's their program. It's our people's program. And so they really direct the charter of where we're going and what they want to influence. And because there's such great representation within that committee, they are making sure that those different races, religions, ethnicities are represented in the voice that they're providing to the committee. And so I want to say that that is what we're doing. So really great representation at the table so that we're not missing the mark on the inclusivity part of the DE&I. And again, that we are truly leveraging those voices of our people of what do they want to see influence within our organization, that they certainly can make a change within providing the feedback and where it is that we want to go. So that's how we did it. There's great representation. We solicited volunteers. We did not self-select anyone into the committee. And because they were volunteers, there is a high level of engagement. And there's really some great momentum that's being built right now within our organization. So we're extremely proud of the work that they're doing.
Great, thank you for that. Next one, actually not a question, but a comment. You know, that you did a great job, Michelle, in your presentation, but it's from an anonymous attendee, so you're not going to be able to put a check in the mail, you know, for that to somebody for that one. So next one is not necessarily directed to anyone, but based on the time the question came in, I think it might be for you, Cheryl, but I'll certainly, Michelle, if you want to, you know, jump in on this one as well. And it's, you know, how should a company provide proper accommodations to hire people under the DE&I program? For instance, you know, bathrooms or shower areas for warehouse employees.
That's I can answer that in as short a time as I can, but you have to set up an accommodation process. So it's actually a process that you want to set up so that you can monitor those accommodations and ensure that what you put in is accurate. You always want to go with the employee's request first, but you ultimately as an employer have the ability to make the decision. It just has to be just as effective. You want to document that process and you always want to follow up with that process. So, and I always say, you know, make sure you have policies that help employees know that it's okay to ask for accommodations and what that process looks like. I actually have a company who have 80% of them have disabilities. And one of the challenges we're having is because they don't have an accommodation process and say some policies, they really don't understand what that means because they still have to be perform the essential functions with that or without an accommodation. So it's not a pass to request an accommodation and not get that. So that being said, when someone does ask for an accommodation, make sure that it's something effective and that you do your research. And if it's something that doesn't work the first time, try and try again. And that's something I teach a lot also is really trying different things. So sometimes it's a process and sometimes it's a multi-factor. So I hope that's the short answer.
Michelle, do you want to add anything to that or?
No, I think Cheryl said it great. I think it's developing and communicating what that process looks like for all of our employees so that they feel comfortable coming forward and requesting that accommodation. I think oftentimes because maybe we don't allow them the platform, they struggle to be able to do their day-to-day jobs because they are fearful of asking for that accommodation. So again, I would echo what Cheryl said and create the process and be clear and transparent of what that process looks like so everyone is aware. And so even if they don't ask, at least they know what that process is.
And the
Great,
confidentiality too, I think is important that, you know, it doesn't matter if they have something different than the person next to them. What they need is confidential. And the only thing we say is we provide for employees what they need in order to be successful in their job. But that's it. So I think that's, I don't know, Michelle, if you experience the same thing, but it's the confidentiality and people not wanting to look a certain way, right? And this is for them to be as successful. And what I find, and Michelle might find too, is that they end up being other employees like, oh, well, that actually is a great idea to do. And it helps other employees feel successful, but it also helps other employees feel more, you know, like their organization more committed. It's just this trickle effect. If you do it, like Michelle and I are talking about, the right way, you've got to have them set up. You have to have that process in place.
Great. Thank you both for that. We do have a few minutes left, so I just do want to highlight, in case anybody missed it, there were a couple questions that did come in for Jay. Jay kind of jumped in and answered them, but they were, what are the two questions that the teleprompt asks as part of Jay's presentation? And I think the answer was just more along the lines of that it doesn't necessarily matter. It's more about the key is listening to the responses to the questions. Are they articulate? Did they answer the question appropriately? Did they respond in positive tone and manner? And are they excited about the opportunity? And then there was another question for Jay, which was, does he use the same process to hire mechanics versus an apprentice? And the answer was that they do use the same process, right down even to a truck driver or the COO. The questions may change based on who it is that you're hiring, but the process stays the same. Jay, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or.
No, I think for us, again, we started this thing. I thought at first, man, this is a little cheesy. I'm not sure I can do this, but the reality is we've done it, and it doesn't really matter. The questions aren't what really matter. What really matters is how do they respond? What is their response? How do they do it? What is their body position? When they answer the question, are they looking at the person who asked the question, or are they looking at whoever's got the biggest title in the room? All those kinds of things tell you something about the person, and you need to take that into consideration.
So great, thank you. And I believe that is all of the questions that we've had. So it is 3:23. We can certainly wrap a few minutes early. So, obviously, out of respect for everybody's time and always in an effort to end on time, we will call this the end of our town hall event. Appreciate everyone that joined us today in the audience. Certainly appreciate the panelists who have shared their time and expertise and resources with us today. And we will be holding more town hall events like this one later in 2022. So look for those announcements, which will be coming soon. And thanks again to everyone for coming. And hopefully we will see you all in Sarasota.